in
All right,
real
everybody,
time.
welcome to the
However,
Community
if
Center
we do
for
not
the
get to them,
live stream
we
of
will
the
go
community
ahead
meeting. We're about to start right
address
now.
as soon as we can and post them to you directly or to the feed where you ask questions.
As you can tell, people are still trickling in
just a
here.
minute, so just hang tight and thank you.
And here's our friends from the Fairbanks North Star Borough Emergency Operations Center. If you're following their page, they have a great large audience on there. And they've been doing all sorts of good social media. Beautiful sunny day here in Fairbanks. If you're joining us live or on the replay, please ask questions. Please make sure to get your questions answered either by posting them here or contacting our information shop. Our goal is to make sure you have everything you need, and the community meeting will be started in just a few minutes as people are packing in here to the favorite Kentucky Community Center. You can see we have some maps up there, which have on the left the fire map there. On the right, the progression map. That'll show you the fire growth over the past 14 days, which is how long it's been since the lightning strike. So again, if you're just joining us, if you're on the replay, go ahead and ask questions, get engaged, share the feed. We're about a few minutes away from the start of the community meeting, and we'll be discussing the fire itself. The firing operations began today up on Old Murphy Dome Road, going well, and Rob Allen wants to put it on the briefing on that. The fire hasn't moved in a few days, so if you have a map from several days ago, it's the same map ever since we had the rain on Sunday. And then today we'll start to see some more activity.
Hey Gene, thanks for your question. We're going to write down as many questions as we can and give them to the speakers to see if they can answer them.
All right.
We also are here and we can comment back to you guys, so thanks so much for coming on.
Look at that.
Thanks for watching, Nancy. And we'll get started in just a couple minutes.
That's the Fairbanks North Star Borough emergency menu page. Kate and Jake, they're doing a great job with the live stream. That live stream had 350 live viewers last time, so if something happens to this stream, go ahead and head over there. Or if you're just looking for really great information on the borough, how to sign up for the text alerts, which have been very active lately. I texted today about the Murphy Dome Road up there being closed and 2 checkpoints. So if you're not from the area, if you're from the area and haven't signed up yet, get yourself on those text alerts.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing this evening? Good. My name is Katie O'Hara. I am one of the public information officers with Pacific Northwest Team 2. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Shovel Creek Fire Information Update. We've got a good group of folks here to hopefully provide some information about what's going on out on the fire, about our plans coming up, and then hopefully answer some questions for you guys. I want to say a quick thank you to our agency administrators for joining us. Chris and Tim, thanks for joining us this evening. And so up first, we're going to have Rob Allen, our incident commander, just give you a quick overview of the fire, introductions. I'm sure some of you know Rob from way back. But thank you for joining us. After that, we will have a quick update on the fire behavior from Andrew Stinchfield with the team, followed by an operations update from Chris. After that, Mr. Gibbs with the North Star Borough, will give you an update on some of the evacuation information. We'll wrap it up at the end. We're going to hold questions for the end. We'll have a window where we can ask questions that are focused on the whole group, information that the whole group would like to know. After that, the team will stick around. We'll be able to answer questions up here at the maps, breakout groups, and hopefully get to as many of the questions as we possibly can. Also, want to say welcome to the folks that are joining us on the Facebook Live. And we're going to do our best to answer questions that come across that method as well. So thanks everybody for joining us. So we'll go ahead and get started here with Mr. Rob Allen, our incident commander.
Well, right in my ear. Well, good evening, everybody. As Katie said, I'm Rob Allen. I'm the incident commander for PNW 2. We took over the fire just a couple days ago from Norm McDonald, who you saw last time too. Norm and I have worked together quite a bit. Norm came out with this team also last year down in the lower 48 and worked with us there. So it made for a real smooth transition between the two teams. We share a lot of resources, a lot of key people back and forth between the two of them. So made it really easy. Really nice for me to come home. I lived here in Fairbanks for almost a little over 25 years. Lived just down the road here in the valley for a long time. Spent a lot of time at Ivory Jacks and in this park, so it's kind of nice to be here. So a little bit about the fire today, and I'll let our ops guys do more talk about it, but the big thing I'm sure everybody wants to know about is the evacuation levels that changed. And we upped everybody on the other side of the road here up into a level 1. We started ignition today to try to take out some of the fire in this upper area here. And as a precaution for that, we wanted to make sure that everybody was in that mindset that, hey, if things don't go really well for us, we might need to have people move out. We knew as we were coming in, and a lot of questions why we haven't gone out and done more direct, why we're waited until the weather get nice to burn. As you all know around here, we couldn't burn when we had the cloud cover. The ground's just too wet, wouldn't take the fire, it wouldn't have made a good burn. There's too much perimeter out there to go get right now. And the big mission that we're trying to pull off of this, by doing the burnout and using the fuel break that's along the old Murphy Dome Road that the state put in, is it's reducing some of that fuel load and relieving some of that risk for the future. For both future firefighters and for folks that living in this area and living up there, any chance that we get to remove some of the fuel that's out there is a good thing. So we've got all the things in place right now to do that. We've got some really good lines I'll let our ops guys talk about to make that happen. And that's what our drive is for right now. The change between Norm's team and this team is just capacity. We come with more people. We come with more ops chiefs. We come with more folks that help with the logistics. And that's the reason we ended up moving out of the Moose Camp, and our ICP is actually at Pearl Elementary, because we needed more room to be able to expand because of the extra capacity that we bring in. It allows us to be able to have, instead of one ops chief trying to work on the whole thing, we come with about 6 ops chiefs. I've got 3 branch directors, 3 ops chiefs working on different pieces of the fire, so people can pay attention. And there's one group just focused on the Chattanooga River. There's a focused group just on the backside. We've got a bunch of folks just focused on pulling off the burnout. So the difference between their team and our team is just capacity. Again, we share a lot of the same people, and I'll let these guys get in and give you some more information, and we'll answer questions later on. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Andrew Stinchfield with Fire Behavior. I'm going to start out here by just giving you a brief overview of the weather that we've experienced, and then talk a little bit about what we can expect over the next couple of days. So you're probably all aware, high pressure is setting up here pretty much over the entire state of Alaska. And with that, hot and dry weather are coming with it. So temperatures we're forecasting for tomorrow on the fire line, 78 to 84 degrees. Sorry. Minimum humidity is 32 to 27%. One of the good things that are coming with this high pressure is little wind. We might see a little bit more wind on Sunday, it looks like. It might pick up a little bit, but mostly localized, terrain-driven winds. Most of the wind will be up on the ridge tops. Thinking gusts to 8 to 10, and then maybe a little higher comes Sunday. And there will be a slight wind change as well on Sunday. Right now it's mostly out of the west. Tomorrow we're looking at north winds, and then into Sunday it's looking like north to northeast or easterly. So that's a plus for what the operational folks have going on out there. Okay, as far as fire behavior goes, what's this weather going to do to it? Well, things are going to start picking up out there. Looking back at when the fire actually made some decent runs, which was last weekend, the indices are climbing back into that range to where we were when the fire made those runs. The fine fuel moisture code is coming up. We're not quite to that point, but we're really, really close to where we were when this fire started and actually moved. The buildup index is still remaining relatively low. The rain that we got actually had an effect on that, and it takes a little while longer to actually come back up to where we were. But it's forecasted to do that. As far as what we're seeing out there, over the last few days, not a whole lot of fire behavior. A lot of creeping and smoldering around the edges. All of this east side here, the open line, but we also got a lot of good work done on this west flank as well, due to those cooler weathers and moderated fire behavior. So I will be sticking around after this, and I'll take some questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Chris Utzel. I'm one of your operations chiefs. Thank you, folks, for being here. I'll take my time here and thank Rob for setting the foundation for what we're doing on this fire. As Rob said, we've got this broken out in the branches, what we call branches. So on the north side, meaning the Chattanooga River, we have what we call branch 1. And those folks have been inserted into that area in order to provide structural protection and do some holding and firing operations along the river. So their mission is to use the protections they can in and around the structures and then hold that fire south of the Chattanooga. So that's their mission there. As we move out here to the east, we have what we call branch 2. Those folks have a multitude of operations that they've been doing. We have the McLeod subdivision, so we've got a structure group in there. What their job is to go in there, prep those structures, hose systems, sprinklers, pumps, to make these homes more defendable in the case of fire. At the same time, these folks have been working on the Old Murphy Dome Road and how it created a line that ties into the Chattanooga River. The idea being, this creates a perimeter for this fire. Obviously, this fire is still sitting down here. We can't go get it, so we're going to bring it out on our terms. So these folks have gone through due diligence, found good lines, and implemented that. As we move down here to the south, this is what we're calling our branch 3. Those folks have been, once again, we have the structure groups. They go in, do all that prep work. They do the line prep, find those opportunities where we can make control lines, and prepare for firing, which is what we've started doing, right? So that leads us into what we're doing today. So currently today, on the south end of the fire, crews have began firing up out of the Martin subdivision on the north side of the road into Murphy Creek drainage, bringing it up into the Old Murphy Dome Road, and then bringing it back to, everyone knows the golf ball, right? Yeah, so that's what they're doing. The intent behind that is if we can put this fire in here deep enough with the current winds and weather that we have, we've created a control line that as the wind moves, we have the depth that if we get any winds that come out of the northeast, that takes that threat away to all these values at risk. So that's a little bit of our strategy in how we look at fire and how we use fire to put out fire. We're putting it on our terms, up on the roads, good ridges, good roads. Moving forward, part of the intent is to use the Murphy Creek drainage. We're wanting to use the burn that we've done, get this down into Murphy Creek, and use that for a control feature and bring it into the Chattanooga River. So that's a little bit of what we're doing. You heard Andrew talk about the weather. Weather plays a big factor into our strategy and tactics and how we address the fire. We want to fight the fire on our terms, not be reactive, but take the fire, take the brunt out of it, take the force out of it, and I would say steer it in the direction that we want to go. Of course, that's always knowing that we have values at risk. So how can we take that risk away? So that's a lot of what we do. All right, I believe I've covered everything, and I'll be around later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm David Gibbs, the Director of Emergency Services for the Borough. I've spoken with you before on a number of occasions. Just from our perspective, we've had a pretty good transition with the team, so it's been almost seamless. They've made us feel very welcome. We've shared some concerns. They've embraced those concerns, and they're working on solutions to the things that we raised. As you know, we did put a few more neighborhoods back into evacuation status. I think it's worth repeating what those are. Just a reminder, level 1 is the ready state, and that's really the state that we all should be in living up here in the summer. So it's really nothing more than what we should already be. Some additional ones went into level 2, Vancouver specifically. That's our set stage, and that really is the prepare to evacuate, not the it's time to go stage. So that's when we talk about the 6 Ps, the people, pets, pills, photos, papers, personal computers, all the things that you should consider if you have to leave in a hurry. Level 3, we still have 2 subdivisions. We have Martin and Perfect Perch that are in level 3. They have been asked to evacuate, and that status remains to this date. A couple other things. We did hear your comments about how we're naming these neighborhoods, and we tried a new thing. We're trying to look at primary access roads so that you can better identify your subdivision. It's not perfect. We're trying, and certainly if there's a better way to do it, we'd like to hear from you, but it's something we're trying. We did put maps up on the Fairbanks North Star Borough website if you'd like to go look. There's actually a banner on the main page of the borough's website that you can click on. It'll take you to fire-related information. So, one thing I did want to say is the team has accommodated our request. We were really concerned about McLeod and Hattie Creek because they really have one way out, and they would have to evacuate through level 3 neighborhood already. So there have been some improvements made to the old Murphy Dome Road so you can evacuate to the east. And I've been assured that that's accessible by a 2-wheel drive vehicle. That was our request. So it's been coordinated, and so that's in place now. Currently, we're just trying to work on the public information piece and provide you with the best information we can. And we're working very closely with the information officers with the team to generate some new products to keep you aware and more apprised of what's going on the actual fire. So that's really what we're working on now. So with that, I'll turn it back to Kitty. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thanks to all of our folks presenting. So we'll take about 5-10 minutes here if folks have questions that you think would benefit the whole group to hear answered from any of our folks up here, any of our operations or Rob or anything like that. We'll gladly take questions. And Rob, if you could give the mic to Carly there, she'll run it around so we make sure the whole crowd can hear the questions. And it looks like, Carly, we've got one in the back, gentleman in the green back there.
Mike Nutter, Coyote Trail. I'd first off and foremost like to say you guys are doing amazing. Thank you very much. The information that's being processed and is being given to us is spectacular. Thank you. I take my hat off. You guys are spectacular. The one question I did have, and just in my ignorance, is I don't know how fast a smaller fire grows to a larger fire growing. And I think that might help just in does a larger fire grow exponentially quicker? Thank you very much.
Trying to think about the best way to answer that. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of factors that we pay attention to, especially like when we started our burn today. We wanted our conditions to be just right. It has to deal with the fuel type that's out there, the terrain, the weather conditions. What primarily moves fires is either slope or wind, especially in black spruce. That's why we're fairly confident right now with what we're working on. For this burnout operation is that we knew we were going to get a high pressure system coming in. We were going to have good conditions to get the fire to burn the way we wanted it to without a lot of wind. And that would be the difference between the indices that they saw a week ago when the fire made its 3-mile run, is that we were at those higher elevated indices and there was wind involved. In our case right now, we don't have wind. Is there still some risk to what we're doing? Yeah, our job is risk versus reward. But because we know there's some risk to that, we upped the elevation. We elevated the evacuation levels just so that we're ready. For us, this is what we do, so we try to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's what we've got in place. I think I answered part of your question, but it's wind that really pushes it around that causes trouble, especially in the black spruce. They can, if we give it enough time and gives it enough energy to really pick up for it to create its own wind to do its own thing. But that's part of what our plan is by segmenting where we're taking out the fuel. We're taking energy out of it for not letting it set up to be able to do that on its own.
David Rohr, how far east along Old Murphy Dome Road are you doing the burn?
Well, we have a plan. Our primary line right now, and then our lines kind of change as the weather goes back and forth. But as far east as we're trying to get right now, we have it prepped using the shear blade line that the state put in a few years ago, all the way up to McLeod, and then from McLeod down to the river. What we're hoping to do right now, we found a spot that we like just past Perfect Perch right here. We came off this ridge and down to Murphy Creek, and if things work well, that's our kind of our next compartment. So what you're seeing us burning right now, what we're trying to do tonight is from Martin to Old Dome. We'll hold that up there, see how that works, evaluate what the weather and the fuels look like. If we need to, our next section is this little section we would take out. And still hoping that at some point we can just get on the creek and follow the creek on down. It's a good barrier for us, depending on how dry, how fast we can get down there and use that. So right now, the big box that we're looking at for this piece comes all the way down to the river from McLeod. We have done some scouting and some looking around all the way out to the pipeline, and we've got people out, other parts of the staff evaluating everything down here through the neighborhoods also for our next line if this doesn't work. Again, we're risk versus reward, trying to find places where we have a high probability of success, and that's where we enter into to our operations.
Just a quick question. How deep are the burns? Like a mile, quarter mile, feet when you're burning?
The controlled burn, what we will end up trying to do by hopefully the end of today, it's a multi-pronged process. We started up here in the corner by the cell tower, and 2 hot check crews are working down and 2 hot check crews are going to work the side. When they get a pretty good depth of a couple 100 feet or so, we have a helicopter which has a plastic sphere dispenser machine in it, drops little ping pong balls to catch on fire, and we'll take this whole thing out so there's no chance for this main fire to get energy enough to come across here and roll up and jump across the shear line for us.
Hi, my question was on the large map. Can you explain the color coding, please?
This is Andy. I haven't seen that map.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is a burn progression map. Each of these colors represents a specific day, and that's how much the fire grew. So for those particular days. And it goes out to July 1st, because we haven't seen a whole lot of growth since July 1st. But it will be good for folks to come up and take a peek at it, especially the fellow that asked the question earlier.
Hello, yes, okay. I was curious what sensors you use to monitor the fire, or eruption of the fire, once you see it happening. And do you have equipment to stake that on the ground and terrain? Is it all airborne, or is it something else?
As far as this fire right now that we're watching now, or as fires that get started in the future, initial attack fires? This one right here, this fire right now, we're monitoring it by the, we can look on what we have as MODIS satellite imagery is what we can see that we pull up, and that'll show us where the hot spots are. We also have people all the way around this fire that are watching it right now. As we're burning, and what we've used the last few days, you've seen the little airplanes with the pontoons on them, the fire bosses flying by. They have IR capability in them, so they can see hot spots as they're flying by, and they'll pick up those. We also have several drones that are here that have IR on them, and also can drop ping pong balls. So we're using a whole suite of stuff to try to figure out where the fire is and where it hasn't moved. We're pretty lucky in this one that you can stand up on Murphy Dome and see most of it right now, and see a lot of the area that we need to look at, and that's a really good way for us to keep an eye on what's happening. And there's crews camped up there all night.
So
So what criteria must be met, if there is one, which would bring the communities into the next level of alertness?
What we use, how this will work for us, and working closely with David and the borough and the troopers and the National Guard that are here working with us right now, we've set what we call management action points. And if the fire gets to a certain point on this map, that triggers us to make a recommendation to the borough that we need to start moving people out. And that's why we worked on getting the road improved up here, which I'd love to go see because I think I've left a muffler up there before. But if that is out better so that we can get people going this way and folks can come down and we're not trying to run into each other trying to get out of here. But we have management action points set up along this whole, in the areas where we're trying to burn. And if the fire gets to a certain area, then we will make a recommendation that it's time to move. We go into that working with Andrew and the fire behavior folks and looking at the weather, trying to figure out how fast the fire might move, so that we can try to move people out in a more orderly fashion than we did when it was an emergency evacuation, when the fire made the big run when the green team was here.
Sir, how close is the backburn to Martin subdivision, or more precisely, to Old Murphy Dome Road?
It's on the other side of the shear blade line.
Maybe you could point on the map.
Okay, let's see, Chris, you gonna help me? We come right out of where I don't know where the cell tower is.
We come right there.
It's probably right there. Right there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And it comes up, shear blade sits inside. shear blade sits inside the road. Correct, everybody's aware of that. So the fire is on the shear blade line, essentially. So we're burning the fuels on the north side of the shear blade and using the shear blade and the road as a holding feature, giving us that space.
So a question, a shear blade then is that big cut that was put in years ago?
Yes, by the state. So we've gone through, over the last 5 days, we've gone through and I would say mitigated the fuels, pushed it down with our chippers and with some roller masticators to bring that fuel back down to the ground. I believe it was maybe 10 years ago they put that in.
It was like 2007, 2006.
Yeah,
started working on that.
Yeah, so that unfortunately, fuels grow over time. So we wanted to go in there, mash that back down, so we didn't have as much fuel on our line. So when we go to burn, so we have an easier time controlling that.
I know that you guys don't like to give answers of certainty, but looking at that map, could you point to the natural features that you're counting on to contain the fire? Like if there's a river, a creek, or Could you just kind of
I'd be
line
happy
that
to.
out?
Yep. So those that are familiar, Old Murphy Dome Road, and then using a feature, this ridge here, where we've gone through with dozer line and hand line to take it down into Murphy Creek. As we follow Murphy Creek out, it comes into the Chattanooga, and that is what we're using for a natural feature, natural and man-made, with our equipment, with our hose lines. Does that answer your question, ma'am? Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Art Nash, Cooperative Extension from UAF. Often the recommendation is, with fire-wise, to clear 30 feet around the perimeter of a dwelling. With a hot weekend coming up, though, would you rather the people not try to clear due to possibly starting off a spark with their chainsaw?
That's a really good idea. So the intent, and you're right, there is that possibility of trying to be proactive and doing fuels mitigations in the drier conditions and starting a fire. The intent behind Firewise is for people to be educated in what they can do off season and out of the fire season to do those preventative measures to make their homes more defendable. Obviously, if you felt the need to do it now, you could do it, but you need to be aware of there is the possibility of starting a fire. So taking some mitigation efforts, having the hose line or shovels nearby. If a chainsaw hits a rock, you can put that out quickly.
Okay, fire extinguisher.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yes, sir. Yeah.
thank you.
But and I really appreciate you bringing up the Firewise, and those folks that aren't aware of it, Firewise, has a lot of great information out there for you, and how you as a homeowner can be prepared.
I had a question regarding the sprinkler systems and everything that have been installed. Thank you guys for being so proactive on that. When we did get the level 3, I'm in Martin subdivision, been up there a couple times. What is the system in place as far as when you have this fire breaker running right now? Are the guys there ready with the sprinklers ready to go? Are they running them a couple times a day and keeping structures damp and so forth? What has been?
You hit every one of them right there. So they're running those sprinklers. They're running their sprinkler system at least once a day, as they were putting those systems in to test them, check how much water they're using, how much water we need to bring up to the mountain to sustain those sprinklers running. As we started our burning operations, those crews have been running those in different areas to increase that RH, so that it's not as susceptible to spotting. This guy over here's had his hand up for a while, so I'm going to give him the mic.
Shoot honesty. I'm right off, so like your guys' last line of defense, I put in like 5,000 gallons in tank water and went and got a backhoe bucket loader with a brush hog. And my question is, when you guys get the ready set, if I move all my livestock out, legally, can I stay at my property?
Yeah, the question was that once we get to a go, do you have to leave your property? And in Alaska, we cannot force you to leave your property. We've had that conversation many times about that back and forth, and kind of our joke is you can stay. If we ask you for your dental records, you might want to think about leaving. But we've got quite a few folks that have stayed in place, and we've been keeping contact with them. We know that they're up there. We know where they are, and that's what we ask. If you end up staying, that you make sure you keep contact with our people that are up there, so that we can make sure that we know where you are. And it does put our firefighters at more risk if we have to do also pay attention to people that are behind us, as well as the fire that's in front of us. So we do ask that you cooperate when we ask you to leave. We're doing it for a reason. We can replace houses and things. We can't replace you. So.
Yeah, Tim Otis on Vancouver Road, but I'm new to this. I came here from Nome just a couple months ago, but there's no trees in Nome. So the question was, if we are to evacuate and we put a blanket or a note saying, though, that we've evacuated, what else can we do? What kind of services can we expect from the crews to protect our homes? And I guess the ultimate question is, what are the chances, the risk reward you talked about, of the fire coming south of Murphy Dome?
Yeah, that's a two-part question there, I guess. And as far as the structure protection stuff that we have going on, the nice part about having the extra days of cloudy weather that we had, when I got the phone call at about 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and we started mobilizing to come up here from the Pacific Northwest, we thought we were going to have one day of rain, an afternoon of clouds, and then we were going to have this fire up and running. We had the opportunity to have a few days more because of the cloudy weather, and it's allowed us to really plan. So we have multiple things in place. One, we have our crews that are up there in what we call our structure protection groups right now that are in the neighborhoods and cruising around and making sure those sprinklers are working. We've worked with, as we started this burn operation, with Fairbanks Area Forestry, and we made sure we didn't take away all of their engines so they can still respond to initial attack. But they did provide us with a bunch of engines. If you drove up the road right now, you'll see a bunch of green trucks driving around. They're kind of our secondary reserve force. If we start to have an issue and problems start coming over, we'll call them. One of our division supervisors is working with that group of engines, and they'll come in and help as a backup for that too in that spot. And then if we get to the point where we have lost everything and we're doing point protection in and around the houses, we have an agreement, and we've worked out with the local fire departments that they will also respond. We can't do structure fires. We only work on the fires that are around the structures, but they'll be able to come in and help us with structure protection if we need to. So we have multiple layers of planning that's gone into this. It is that risk versus reward, and there is no guarantee that it won't end up there. But when we engage in an operation and start working on it, we try to pick the ones that have the highest probability of success that we feel we can pull off, and then we always have backups. So those are our backups right now. Is it 100% that we could save everything in there? Probably not. But we'll do our darndest to do what we can. What was it today?
Yeah, David Gibbs, I'll handle part two. Thanks for the question. The services you could expect if you were evacuated is the question I'll respond to. Okay, thanks. We have actually set up an emergency shelter now at Randy Smith Middle School in Fairbanks. We've got a school that's been identified as a backup to that, and then a church that's a backup to that. So we have enough capacity. We've got folks up from Anchorage to help. The Red Cross operates our shelters on our behalf. We got folks that brought up equipment from Anchorage and people to staff those shelters. We also have established a kind of a pet holding area, emergency pet holding area at the Tanana Fair. We've got a whole barn set up to receive animals as well. So thank you.
Jen Reed, Vancouver Subdivision. Hey, welcome. Looking forward to getting to know you under different terms. We understand you guys have been really clear about how we can and can't be helpful. We know to be evac ready. We know to not try to offer food, but instead, offer thanks. Most of us have holding tanks instead of wells. Should we be putting up our own sprinkler systems around the home with notes saying, turn this toggle? Or do we need to just stand down and leave and hope for the best? Like, what actually works when you get to a situation where we are in evac 3 and you've already done Firewise? What are some additional things that people can do?
Well, really, the Firewise work beforehand is what really needs to happen, and like Chris said, that stuff that really needs to happen is you're thinking about building your house and putting your property up and clearing out that spot, and having built a home up here myself, I know how hard it is to get everything whacked back, and then you want to get started, you want to get up, and you want to get in, and then it's an endless process of trying to clear everything else around your property for sure. But as far as like putting up sprinklers and stuff like that, by the time we get to a go notice, it really is more beneficial for us if you can just leave, and we'll come in with the equipment we need to start working on that what we can do in that spot there.
So if you're there's no point in putting up a sprinkler system, or there is.
If you're in a 2 right now and you have the capacity to do that, it's not going to hurt. But in the second end, I mean, if we're in that point too where we're coming back and forth, I mean, I'm not going to encourage everyone to go down and buy Walmart out of sprinklers right now to go set them up. But it wouldn't hurt. But what really helps us out the most is getting that cleared space around the house so that when we show up and we come in, we have a way that we can get down your driveway and get out. We can see where we're going. We know what's down there. An open driveway enough that you think about a truck that's the size of an engine can turn around and get back out. Those are the things that really help us out. The sprinklers won't as much because we're going to come in and just try to put out whatever's on the ground. But really cleaning up around those eaves, underneath the decks, everything that's around the spot. What ends up happening generally when a house burns, it's not when the fire front comes through. A lot of times houses burn after that, when the embers are sitting there and there's spot fires that are in the yard that don't get picked up, and if we can get in and get those, then we can get those out.
Will you be bringing in water? So if we have a well or a tank and we're...
I'll let you take this one.
Use our water or...
So those that didn't hear, she asked if we will be bringing water into your holding tank, is what you're asking?
I have a well, but
yep.
I'm thinking if we run my well dry, does that mean
Right. No. So what we have, thank you. What we have done is we are hauling water from town up the hill to the fire station there. They have an 50,000 gallon holding tank. So we're bringing it from town, putting it in the tank, taking it out of the tank and taking it up to the hill, and we have portable tanks up there set up on the hills. So we take the water, take it to the mountain, put it in the portable tank, And that's how we supply water to our sprinkler systems, and our hose lays along the control line. The intent behind that is just that. Majority of your wells are not strong enough, your tanks aren't big enough to sustain the amount of water that we're flowing. Chief, give me a round number on the number of gallons we've run out of your station in just an average day.
50 or 60,000 gallons a day at minimum.
Yeah. So you have 1 or 2 gallon a minute wells, I assume, or the holding tanks are 500 gallons, right? Okay. I'm just. So we want to bring a reliable source to the fire so that we can support it. We know how to support it, and we bring on the equipment to do that. Ma'am, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, along these same lines, those that have the well, this hasn't been brought up by the borough about Golden Valley, which is our electric cooperative. I was told that if the fire is imminent, Golden Valley will shut the power off, but that's never been addressed. So if the power's shut off, your well's not going to work.
You are correct, sir. And I have been working personally with Golden Valley on what we're doing with the electrical. We do have a plan in place for the safety of the firefighters in and around the fire where they're burning. We have dissected, there's portions of the feeder lines that come in. There's opportunities to shut portions of that off. And it does affect those homes. The intent behind that was, like I said, for firefighter safety as we're firing along the power lines. After the fire is moved away from the power lines, that would be that opportunity where we could re-energize the power. We didn't want to have to shut everybody's power off, so we're trying to, like I said, keep the intensity low around the power lines, keep the homes powered so that folks can do what they need to do.
So for the level 1 properties, what kind of, will you be sending personnel out, or is that not at that level where you'll be starting to look at those properties?
So at a level 1, what they'll do is the notification part. Like Rob mentioned earlier, we have folks out there looking around and trying to plan for what's going to be needed for those areas. In a level 1, traditionally we don't set up the sprinkler systems in those areas because they're further away from the actual fire and our actual containment lines. But it's more of a notification so that people are thinking about, what was it, your 6 Ps. We talked about the 6 Ps, so that folks are planning for it.
Hi, Dave Klum, confluence of Chattanooga River and Murphy Creek. Just curious.
So like right here?
As a matter of fact, yes. So when you're going to be burning this line, are you utilizing the Murphy Creek Trail that comes off of this ridge? Just
yes. You'll love it.
And the Murphy Creek drainage, or are you going to be starting your burn a little bit farther to the east?
Well, they're still looking at what they're going to work on in there, but they got on the Murphy Ridge Trail. That's what they came down on to get in there. Some of the crews that came off of McLeod got down onto Murphy Creek and they put in a saw line that they started working up, right? And these guys are making another saw line. The advantage that we have once it gets down into these flats out here is that, of course, it does flatten out. It gets a lot wetter. The fuel change also changes down there where it's a little bit more advantageous. In here where it's really tight and narrow, as you folks know that have been up there, it's all black spruce back and forth. And trying to get that taken care of is a lot more difficult than when we get down here and we get the fuel change.
Okay, because the trail does split down here and follows this ridge line back, and then the other side.
We've we've been here 4 days. The other crew had been here for 8 days. The Pioneer Hotshots had been here the whole time, and I think Chris Baumgartner, their superintendent, has walked every inch of this at least a couple of times. He's been all over the place, along with the rest of the crews. They've been trying to work the problem as we've been working on the roads and putting in the dozer lines. Crews have been going around trying to find areas where we had opportunities to put in something that might be successful.
Okay, is this on?
No.
Okay, we have a question from our online audience, and thanks everybody for joining us. We have a couple hundred people online right now. Meredith Mavenkamp, when do you expect Murphy Dome Road to be open?
See, that rolls right uphill just like that, doesn't it? So you're talking about Murphy Dome Road? Old Murphy Dome Road.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Old Murphy Dome Road is going to be closed for a while now. We're using that as our main operation, and even if you try to get up there right now, all that water needs to get moved up there somehow, right? So all that water is coming up in huge water tenders, and they're going up right now. Like today when we started lighting, they've got a pretty intricate pattern where they're coming up spinach and then going out and coming back down the other way. So they're coming in a circle. And trying to get back and forth in there as we're moving dozers around and lowboys and engines and the water tenders. There's just not enough room for anybody else to be up there. So we've got it closed now, one, so that we can move, and two, so that if the fire does come over, we're able to respond to that without having any other traffic in there. All of this that we're cognizant of the folks that have been out of their homes now for 5, 6, 7 days. That haven't been able to get back in there. We're trying to do it just as quickly as we can. And part of the reason for doing the burnout operation that we are is to lengthen the duration of this incident as much as we can.
Shorten.
Did I say lengthen? Yeah. Sorry. I'm so happy to be home that I don't want to go back to Washington. To shorten up the length of this incident as much as we can. Again, one of the things that we're going to be seeing too with the hot and drier weather is a competition for resources that are that are here in the state right now. We have brought up, I heard on the call today, they've just brought up the 11th and 12th jet load of crews from the lower 48. That's 5 crews in each jet load. So we've got a lot of resources in the state. But as other things start picking up, there's a fire down by Montana Creek. The fire out towards Livengood was picking up. They've got stuff out in Toke that's picking up. So there's things that are happening. They're going to start to be a draw on resources. So anything we can do to speed up this incident here, get us it off the map, get those crews available for someplace else, and then get you all back in your homes to get the road back up is what we're trying to do. Time frame on that? I don't have one right now. The weather's just getting hotter and drier. We're doing what we can to speed that up, but we will definitely be paying attention to where we are in that time frame and open things up just as soon as we think it's safe.
Hi, Rick Colston, Old Murphy Dome and O'Connor Creek subdivision. Am I even on the map up there yet?
I missed your Murphy Dome Road and O'Connor Creek?
O'Connor Creek, Hattie Creek Road.
That's way east, yeah. No, we're not there yet.
We come in on the Elliott Highway side.
Yeah, that's much farther back, right.
And they've got construction. And
we've talked with, and a part of the evacuation plan for going out across the top of Old Murphy Dome Road out to the Elliott. We've been in touch with Alaska DOT, and if we have to make that call that we're doing the evacuation, we'll talk to those the shift foremen out there. They'll help us expedite traffic through that area also.
If I want to go up Spinach Creek and turn east and go to my cabin out there, can I do that?
No.
Another question then. I'm not in the McLeod subdivision.
Right.
I'm off the end of it in DNR land. Did you do anything because the fire thing, the rate was stopped below my property and it didn't continue on? Did you do anything with that?
Get my fancy pointer out here. Told you I'd use it. So specific to McLeod, no, I'm pretty sure I know where you're at. So you're sitting about right out in here. Yep. Okay. So the shear blade ends, and then it picks back up, sits back in here. What we've done is we've gone through underneath where we've off this ridge here. We've gone underneath a majority of the subdivision and put a check line in, or a control line. We've also put in check line, control line around the back side of the McLeod subdivision, encompassing the homes that sit in there. So I'm going to say sides, we put in protections. Yep.
that was one of those places too. It's kind of the projects that we've worked on. I was here at Hastings and we got around this side and we just never quite figured out how to get across that. So we ended up getting our hand pushed this time, so we did.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take 2 more questions, gentlemen, right here, and then ma'am, right back there. And then after that, remember, folks will stick around. They'll be up here at the maps, so we can continue to ask questions. Thank you.
I just had a question about notification. 2 o'clock in the morning, and things get out of hand, and they want you to leave. You got people running around banging on doors, or is it all just the text message?
There'll be multiple forms of notification. We've been working through that too, and with what we're looking at right now and the fire behavior we're seeing and what we have in place, that's part of our proactive planning, is to not do an evacuation at 2 o'clock in the morning, to have our management action points if a fire gets to an area that gives us enough time to get warnings out, not only on Facebook and through text messaging, but also having people come through the neighborhood. If you've been up there and you've seen it, well, you might haven't, because we haven't let you back into your place. But the places are marked right now with flagging to let people know whether there's somebody still in that structure or if they're out. And then they're continually going around our folks and checking and making sure that everything looks good and everything's secure. The National Guard's up there also making sure that nobody comes in or out that while we're in the middle of all these operations.
Right in the middle there.
She's coming.
She's on the fly.
She's jogging.
Okay, one last question here, folks. If you have any online, go ahead and ask those and we'll type the answers.
I hope this is a general question. How wide? You said enough room for the truck to get in. How wide does that have to be? Enough room for the truck to get turned around? What are we talking about here? And how would we find out? I know this is a preparation question, but how do we find out for making sure we have that long term?
It is a preparation question, you're right, and you can contact Fairbanks Area Forestry, and they can have a prevention person that can come out and walk you through and give you some information on Firewise, and they could answer that question at that point too, to come out and take a look around. There's several other, I believe, as I remember, we had Fairbanks Area did most of that stuff, but I think there's some other agencies too here in town that can come out and help you get some grant money and other things for doing Firewise around your place also.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful questions. I think we got a lot of great information out there. Just as a reminder, our team here, Rob, Chris, Andrew, David will be sticking around to answer any additional questions. If you'd like to come up at a map and take a look at it closer at the map. Also, we have printed off some additional maps that you can take home with you. They're at the table in the back. If you would like one of those, please go ahead and grab one of those as well. Otherwise, thank you so much. And as a reminder on there, if you have more specific questions, our fire information phone number is on the back of the agenda. And feel free to give us a call. We've got a whole staff here that's ready to answer your questions. Thanks and have a great evening.
Okay, that's the conclusion that we'll show you what it looks like here at the Camp Conference. So we'll get a look and feel.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Hey, if you go and watch part 1, you can get the rest of the Shovel Creek Fire update. And there we go. Also, leave your comments below. We don't
Hey, so again, go ahead and ask us questions online or call our information center here at the Pearl Creek Elementary School. The numbers are all over the place. We'll go ahead and post them here too, and we want to make sure everybody out there has everything that they need to understand what's going on in the fire. That's our mission. Here's what it looks like on the breakout afterwards. The folks being able to talk right to me and to Andrew. There's our operations chief, Chris Hudson, getting questions from folks, answering questions directly. So that's what we're doing here. We're trying to make sure you have what you need. The burnout operation is underway right now from the Martin subdivision west to Old Murphy Dome, Ball Summit there, and then from Martin north down the Dozer line we put in. We put that video up this morning so you can see it. watching online, that means you do have Facebook, of course, and YouTube. We are posting videos and transparency campaigns so you get a chance to see what the fire perimeter looks like. We've got the Old Murphy Dome fuel break that we just put up a couple hours ago from the helicopter tour. Of course, that's for you. Again, this is all about neighbors helping neighbors.
What I was going to do is put in part one of
getting ready.
Yeah, just change it down that way the people see it.
The pets ready. I just came in front of the there's Rob Allen and Lisa Fernando talking to members of the public specifically. We want you to be in the front row. We want you to ask questions. Share this with friends. Right there, answering questions. Right back there is Dave Gibbs answering questions. And again, we want to thank everybody. It's a fantastic community. A lot of us on the Pacific Northwest team too are from this area. I live in Wayne, Alaska, in the Saco Fire Scar, and co-lead Sarah Solis, the Anchorage families at the Junction. I've been here for 25 years. Peter just asked, so Facebook Live records this whole thing. You can go right back to the video right now. It's stay here. DNR show will also put it on YouTube. You can absolutely go watch this video right now all over again. That is what Facebook does. So if you're on the page, you know, and you just go ahead and hit the rewind button. In the upper right-hand corner of any video on Facebook, you can click save. So if you want to come back and you can put in your save videos. It's not just live and disappears, it's live and it stays on the server as if they didn't record it live. So that answers your question. Thanks for joining us, Mike Ellis. World famous mushroom, Sebastian Solis, Paul Hendricks, thanks to Elizabeth Morris, Heather Sedgwick,